Hello and welcome to the Sour Popcorn Podcast.
A weekly podcast regarding all things entertainment, including reviews.
In the news this week, a Sonic the Hedgehog movie's been confirmed, with Tim Miller, obviously the director of Deadpool, producing.
I think this could be really interesting. It'd just be weird to see in what way they take it. There's so many different versions of Sonic now. We're going to see like the Sonic Boom era, the classic version, or are we going to see more of the like Sonic Heroes kind of equivalent? Like, where are they going to take it?
As long as Tails is in it, then I'm happy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what characters they include and specifically kind of what they do with the story. Like, it'd be great to see them almost do like a Wreck-It Ralph kind of thing, or a Lego Movie where they're sort of aware, like, or there's a bit of a real life live action element. That'd be something that'd be interesting, I think, to be explored.
I'd say I'd only really be excited for this film if they announce a director that's proven themselves to be interesting in the past, especially with animated films and adapting from source material. Because while I love Tim Miller and his work, he was on the comic book shopping series a while ago, producing, he won't have that much control over it.
Yeah, it'd be great to see someone that I think he could collaborate well with. I know I bring them up a lot, but Phil Lord and Chris Miller might be interesting. Like,
Yeah, I love them.
Like, they did such great things with the Lego Movie, and I think they're really suited to like a great kind of humor, and like they can make it adult, they can make it children based, and that's I think what you need with this Sonic movie, because of course you've got to bring in the kids, but there are going to be those old adult classic Sonic fans who grew up with Sonic and who will of course turn up out of interest. So I think they'll do something that will be able to please both kind of crowds if they were picked.
As much as I'd love a Phil Lord and Chris Miller Hedgehog movie, I don't see them doing it, and that really upsets me.
Yeah, I think we're going to not receive another animated movie from this pair for a long while, if I'm honest.
Because they had the success of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and then they had the Lego Movie. And I think now, especially as they were on a Star Wars film, they now sort of see themselves as not above it, but they want to go into different project areas and do different things.
Yeah, I think they're certainly going to be taken in a new direction, given the fact that while they never made the Han Solo movie, they at least proved themselves up to the challenge, and I think that's going to be something that studios will be able to see, and that they'll think, yeah, we need to get on this pair and take them somewhere with it.
I think Paramount Pictures might, because they're doing some experimental things at the moment, and especially I think Netflix would grab onto them, because they're more into experimental things rather than just churning out film after film that does nothing different than the other.
Yeah, it's the primary reason to love Netflix. But I just hope, in regards to this Sonic movie, that it does not relate to the god-awful Sonic the Hedgehog TV show that's out at the moment. If it strays away from that, then it's got my interest.
Oh, did you hear Fast and Furious 9's pushed back to 2020?
It's not a complaint I've got at the moment, honestly. The less of these films, the better. They're just a black hole that is sucking any creativity out of Hollywood.
Although I'm surprised that they are waiting this long to work on the story and to get the whole cast together, because Fate of the Furious, the 8th one, is one of the most highest grossing films of all time, and I thought they just literally want a sequel out like that, rather than actually taking their time to do the story, to get all the cast together. I'm surprised that they pushed it back.
Yeah, as much as I don't like it, I can give it the merit where when they did their first sort of trilogy with Fast 5, Fast 6 and Fast 7, those were 3 films that were fairly closely released together. It felt like that complete trilogy, and of course that's what they're going for with 8 and 9. You'd think that they'd want to be able to like bring that out as quickly as they could while there is still that hype of a Fast and Furious franchise going around it, like, especially with how well the Fate of the Furious has done.
And did you hear that Vin Diesel wants to bring Paul Walker as a main character?
I've got about as little interest for these films as I can honestly say. They had a great opportunity to end it well on 7, so they could do it for the fans, and they just thought, no, we're just going to ruin it. At this point, Vin Diesel can do whatever he wants with it. I have got no interest in these films.
At least he's still as Groot.
Yeah, it's that, and hopefully the Iron Giant in Ready Player One.
Oh.
Hopefully.
I hope so.
Speaking of great animated movies at the moment, like a director, Travis Knight, who has directed brilliant films like Paranorman and Kubo and the Two Strings, has recently been confirmed to be the director for the spin-off Bumblebee movie. And I'm really actually quite excited for this film now that he's coming to it, because he's not a director that needs money. He is actually coming from a very wealthy background, and I think this is an opportunity for him to step into something different, because with the Leica films, he hasn't made a lot of money from those. He hasn't had a lot of money to make them, but this is Paramount, this is Transformers. He's going to have so much room to do as he pleases with them.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that Bumblebee from Transformers, or is that a Barry B. Benson B-movie spin-off?
Yeah, we do not need another one of those. But I think also with the fact we've got Haley Steinfeld coming into this, like a proven rising star from like films like Begin Again or Edge of 17, yeah, which was one of my favourite films last year, I think it'll be really great to see how he's able to do something like this. And more importantly also, if Michael Bay is going to give him some room, because Michael Bay is still going to be producer for this movie, but to see someone really quite unexpected as Travis Knight come into this franchise and potentially do something different, I think it will bring in some new creativity that we haven't seen. I mean, especially given the fact that it's set in the 80s.
I'm not sure how much free rein he is going to be given from Michael Bay, because it's like on the Ninja Turtle films, it's not directed by Michael Bay, but he was still the cameraman and he was out there shooting, and he like chose all the shots and everything like that. And I feel like the director, especially of those, felt very, do I say anything? That this is actually my film?
Yeah.
Or,
but yeah, he is like that. It's a shit brand, but he is that proven brand. Like the Transformers films, as bad as they may be domestically, they are making billions internationally, and if you can count on him to do that, I'm sure Paramount is keen for him to keep that process in a way.
I'm not going to lie, the Transformers films are very much my guilty pleasure. Like, while I can definitely see their faults, I sort of, because they were a large part of my childhood, I do hold them at too high regard.
Yeah, I grew up with Transformers as well, and I enjoy parts of the first one, and the fourth one is just so bad it's good. But no, 2, 3 and 5 are just nearly 3-hour slogfests of just everything that's wrong with movies these days, and I just can't bear to sit through them.
When Revenge of the Fallen came out on DVD, me and one of my mates literally watched it like 3 or 4 times in a row. We loved it so much.
That just really upsets me, and
it upsets me looking back on it now. Don't worry, I'm just as disappointed.
Just makes me want to revoke your status as a film buff, because you shouldn't be watching movies anymore. But I think
it was a different time back then.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that. Regardless, though, I think it'll be interesting to see what Travis Knight does with this. But speaking of directors who are doing some interesting things with actors at the moment, Kate Winslet has been talked into it by James Cameron to come back for the latest Avatar sequel. We don't know what her role will be or how she'll appear in it, but she's definitely confirmed to be in it.
Do you reckon she'll be the Michelle Rodriguez of this one?
I would love for her to be. I think it'd be interesting to see her do something like that. I hope she's not just like the Sigourney Weaver character. I mean,
oh no.
It's great that he's bringing back all these old stars. I mean, like Linda Hamilton's coming back to Terminator, and now Kate Winslet's coming back to collaborate with him again. And I think you've got me a tiny bit more interested in these Avatar movies now.
Although these Avatar movies have a $1 billion budget for 5 films, and while that gives each one $200 million to work with, that is too much to spend on films, let alone Avatar.
It is also like the fact that these are $200 million movies that they're not being asked for. There isn't a big fan culture for an Avatar movie. There wasn't really that much clamouring for it, unless if you were counting in 2009 when it originally came out. Years and years have passed, and there's no longer any buzz for it. It's more just James Cameron who's pushing them, and I feel they're kind of throwing this $1 billion at him so that he can at least do it well if he's got to do it.
I feel that the reason why the first Avatar is one of the most successful films of all time financially is because it was one of the first ones to utilise 3D, and it looks spectacular with all the CG and everything. But I feel that it was more renowned for its technical aspects rather than its actual story, and I don't feel like people are looking for a sequel. Yeah,
something that I've always admired about James Cameron is when he's making these films is he's advancing the technology with it. He did it with Aliens, he did it in parts of Titanic. He's always, and of course quite famously, he had to wait a long while to make Avatar because he knew he had a specific way he wanted to make it. But in this film, there's going to be very little technology for him to kind of advance and make use of, and it leaves me to kind of wonder, will we kind of lose it with this movie? Like, we had the awe and the wonder of the original Avatar movie, but now that that's sort of removed with nothing new really being advanced other than the story, will Cameron be able to prove himself as a sensational storyteller, not just a great director?
Do you reckon if the second one really bombs badly and earns no money, they'd sort of just finish the other ones and not give it much more money, or they'd still stick with the 1 billion?
No, I think they'll remove the 1 billion that Cameron will put in his own money himself. He is raking in money, not like enough to put it up, but those films, but he will put in a great deal of money to see these things done. He is got his heart set on them, and I don't think now that they've made this investment, or the fact that they've got ties to Cameron, they can really afford to drop him, because the second they drop these movies, he will go with them.
Don't ask why I was at a dark place, but I was Googling James Cameron, and then on the suggested it said James Cameron net worth, and he is worth $700 million.
Yeah.
How? J.J. Abrams isn't even worth that much.
Yeah, but it's because Cameron has made the biggest cinema movies ever made. He's given us Aliens, The Terminator, he's given us Titanic. The more household names that you can't expect James Cameron to be involved and he not be given the big tools and the big money to make the movie that is going to bring people to the theatre.
I also don't see James Cameron sort of taking shit from anyone or any studios, because if the studio tries to interfere, I can just imagine him going Gordon Ramsay on them and just telling them that it is his movie and they just need to trust him because he is known for making good films.
Yeah, he's a rare director where this is his creative vision and it will be told in the way that he wants it told. There's no kind of expectation from the studio at this point. It is all just kind of on his shoulders and in his mind, and I think with Kate Winslet beside him or in his movies, especially with hopefully Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana coming back, I think we could potentially get an interesting movie, and if not, at least an interesting failure.
With Kate Winslet, Greg James said it on Radio 1 a couple of days ago, she had in the year 2000 a single that was out and it got to number 6 in the charts, and nobody's heard of it. He played a clip of it, and how did it get to number 6 and nobody even remembers it? It is for a Christmas Carol animated film or something like that, and it's not terrible, but it's not the best.
It's the scenario of the Rick and Morty song, it feels good. No one knew that, and yet that was the top of the charts in the 90s. No one had heard of that until Rick and Morty brought it back, and it's just brilliant.
Bad thing is, when I watched it when I showed the episode to my dad, he is into strange music and he was singing along because that's exactly the sort of thing that he likes.
Yeah, maybe a good point to move on there.
With Jessica Jones Series 2, I think that started filming actually. They haven't confirmed actual directors, but what Netflix has confirmed is that all the directors will be women. And I'd say fine. It's not like they're going to be better or worse at the job, but as long as they can prove that they can, with any director really, as long as they can prove that they know the source material and they appreciate it and can work with it, then I don't see a problem with it at all.
No, I think it's a great thing that this sort of thing is happening. It's really quite surprising, in fact, that this is probably, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first female-led project that I think Marvel has ever done. I don't think they've done it in any of their movies. I think if we went through all of those, you could find they're male-directed. So it is really interesting to see that they are doing this on the Netflix shows and that they're trying to bring in something fresh and something different to the show and potentially a different perspective that we haven't seen in this extended universe yet.
But the thing that upsets me about this story is the fact that it is a story. It shouldn't be a story that women are it's all female directors for a project. It should just be a story when they're announced. It shouldn't be a story about their gender.
Yeah, it shouldn't really matter. It was the whole controversy with like Patty Jenkins taking Wonder Woman, and it was the female Ghostbusters. Like, people didn't have a problem with it because it was women. They had a problem with it because of who was making it, and I think that's the more important thing. Like, you shouldn't be considering the gender of this person making it at all. The story should be, look who's been brought in, potentially look at what they've done in the past, and look how well they're going to make this movie.
That's one of the things that annoys me when politics gets involved with casting and choosing what's best for roles, because I'm someone that really likes to, if I don't enjoy a film, I sort of like to talk about it and maybe jokingly rip into it. But if it has become political, like with the female-led Ghostbusters, then it means I just have to be careful with what I say, even though anything I would say wouldn't be malicious in any way towards it or be misogynistic. It's just, I just want to bitch about bad films.
Yeah, same. It's like when they announced the new Ocean's 8 movie with the cast of characters that they've got, of course, all being female. Don't get me wrong, I love the cast, but I will crap on this movie regardless. I think it's just being made to get in with the hype of female reboots, and really they kind of don't need to happen. It's the same with the whitewashing controversy. Yes, I agree, for certain roles you do need to be giving actors roles of certain like ethnic backgrounds, but for some of them, I think when they give in these great performances, like, I wasn't okay initially with Tilda Swinton playing the Ancient One in Doctor Strange, but I still think she did an amazing job. I don't think she gave a bad performance at all. I thought she was one of the better parts of the films, and I think the fact that people rat on them for things like this whitewashing, they rat on them for this like female casting choices, it's in ways justified, but at the end of the day, if they give something good, there really isn't much to complain about.
Although I did sort of appreciate and respect Ed Skrein for stepping down from Hellboy because he found out that the character had American Asian heritage. So he said, no, I'm going to stand down from this role, even though it's a character that I'd have loved to have played, but it should go to someone more off that background. So I respected him for that.
Yeah, I think he's setting like a really admirable trend in Hollywood there. It's something that I hope potentially more people might follow, really.
Though, talking about female-led reboots, you know, The Nice Guys is having a TV reboot.
Oh, no.
That's been a female-led one. And I just think, as long as they cast the right people, because in the original film, Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe shared that strange chemistry. As long as they have similar dynamic and it works well. But it has the writer from 30 Minutes or Less, Michael Diliberti? Michael Diliberti. Yeah, he's writing the pilot, so I'm hopeful.
I'm really excited to see this come back. I think it'll be great with the talent that's involved, but The Nice Guys was one of my favourite films last year. Shane Black honestly said he could make movies like that about those two characters for the rest of his life because they were brilliant characters. Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe brought something to those roles. A comedy, a chemistry that had been, in my opinion, unseen in like a buddy crime movie in years. Honestly, to see that lost for this TV show or for any potential movies is really in ways quite heartbreaking, because to me Shane Black had at least another 4 of those in him with those characters, and they would have been brilliant. This TV show promises to be, but it's really quite sad to think that we won't get Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe back, especially with Shane Black, given how busy that man is.
And it also depends on if Michael Diliberti understands why the first one worked and understands why it is now so beloved by people, rather than if he just sort of takes a similar story and...
Well, regardless, I think it's something to keep our eye on, and I've got high hopes. One thing I definitely have not got high hopes for, though, is the new Men in Black movie. Yeah, it's been recently announced that the supposed crossover between 21 Jump Street and Men in Black has been completely cancelled.
Which upsets me.
Same, I'm not the biggest 21 Jump Street fan, but it would be great to see those kind of characters meet. But Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones are now out, and there'll be new cast members brought in, a new sort of story, and supposedly it will be going global. Like, it won't just be the Americas that are shown, they'll be kind of zipping around the world to solve alien-based problems there, which...
What's like the Kingsman and Statesman, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that sort of idea, really, like they'll be going all around the world. I haven't got a problem with this, because only the original Men in Black movie was good, but I just felt... Who really wants this? It's the Avatar movies. Like, is there really that much clamour in front of a Men in Black movie?
Although the writers that they have in for it, Art Markham and Matt Holloway, their writing credits extend to Transformers: The Last Night, the critically acclaimed film.
The Oscar-worthy
and also
Transformers: The Last Night.
And also the first Iron Man, which does give me hope for this.
Yeah, because the first Iron Man is, to me, one of the greatest comic book films ever made, and has got really great chops because it is a great story.
However, Robert Downey Jr. is known for improvising, so how much of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear about Judy Greer being in the new Halloween film?
No, this has actually made me really excited. I'm a fan of hers. I've liked some of the things she's been in. Let's forget about Jurassic World, but I think with this Halloween movie, the fact that you've got Jamie Lee Curtis coming back, I think it'd be nice to see them two play together. But really, you just need like some fresh kind of energy. Like, you need someone that you know is going to be good in this new Halloween movie, because I'm not excited for it. I don't think they should have done any others after Halloween 3, and they should have just left it there. But if they've got to do it, at least do it well with some of these new actors.
I do love Judy Greer, and she is brilliant in Archer. She is hilarious.
She's sensational.
But what did not upset me, but something that annoyed me from her being in Jurassic World, when she's on the phone to Bryce Dallas Howard, then she starts crying. I thought that was initially a piss take, and she would be like, "Hey, fooled you, not actually crying, but just look after my kids." But it didn't work, and it's a sad trend that she's wasted in most things she's in.
Yeah, she played a really interesting character in the 2013 Carrie movie, and like she had some like really quite like caring and authoritative scenes. I thought, yeah, she's really good. I'd like to see her in more, and we haven't in such a capacity in a long while. So I think it'll be interesting to see her come into this and see what kind of role she plays, whether she will be, how should I put it, the Jamie Lee Curtis of this movie, like if she'll be in lots of it or if she'll just be a minor role. But regardless, I'm excited to see what happens with it. And our final piece of news before we go is the fact that I'm really excited for this. Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio are back together. Leo has gotten off his arse after that year he spent on his sailboat, and they're coming together to do a Teddy Roosevelt movie. It's not what I would have liked to have seen them do, but it's very interesting to see them try this. I mean, they are great collaborators, and I think it's going to be really great to see them come together like this.
I wouldn't have been interested in a Teddy Roosevelt film if Scorsese and DiCaprio weren't attached, and even then, I mean, I'm still going to watch it because I love both of their works, but it's just not really a premise that's going to grab me.
No, I'm not that interested at all by this movie. It's just the fact that it's the talent behind it. I think DiCaprio and Scorsese are the greatest director and actor talent remaining in Hollywood today. Like, it used to be De Niro.
What, like a duo?
Yeah, it used to be De Niro and Scorsese. Now it's DiCaprio and Scorsese, and I think they're great in the sense that Scorsese knows Leo so well. They have such a great relationship in that he can convince him to do the right projects. Like, it's like, I'd even go as far as to say, if Scorsese wanted with this Joker movie that's coming out, if he really wanted, I think he could get Leo to do it.
I don't think Leo would do it, because I'd say he might if Scorsese was directing, but it's Todd Haynes directing, so I don't see. He might be in it, but I don't think he'll come in for the Joker.
No, I don't think he will be the Joker, but I just like to make the comment that I think Scorsese can pretty much get Leo to do whatever he wants. He gave him that. They gave each other that massive comeback with The Wolf of Wall Street. They've won each other Oscars in their own different ways, and I think in the sense that Scorsese has got the best working relationship with him, that I don't think any director can rival it. I mean, maybe Christopher Nolan has got some leeway in there, but I mean, James Cameron, we were talking about him as one of the greatest directors ever. There's no chance in hell he could ever convince Leo to be in one of these Avatar movies, ever. Whereas Scorsese, I think if he wanted to, he could get Leo to do like a little small crime movie. He could get him to do a giant epic space movie. I think he really could, as long as he convinces him and gives him a good reason. I really think he'd get him in anything.
But it felt like, especially with Leo, he got the Oscar and then he's just gone, and then he lived on the boat for a year. Like, he was really pushing for that, giving out great performance after great performance, and then he just disappeared.
Gone. He was giving out great performances to such an extent that you didn't get a fatigue with him because they were so good and you were desperate for another. I mean, Great Gatsby, The Revenant, Shutter Island, Wolf of Wall Street, they were all sensational films, and now that he's back and doing a biopic, doing something that I don't really think we've seen him do before, to such an extent that he's a great character actor. He's never done like a real person though, and I think it'd be really interesting to see like what he'd bring to this role.
So Zach, let's talk Gerald's Game. So first we'll talk non-spoilers, and then we'll get into spoilers, but we'll warn when we're going to talk spoilers.
Yeah, so Gerald's Game is a 2017 Netflix adaptation of Stephen King's short novel of the same name, and this is a major improvement over that story, and is ultimately a great movie that I think potentially for the ages.
I really enjoyed this, and Netflix hardly advertised it or hyped it up anywhere, so I wasn't really expecting that much. I thought, oh, maybe they're just trying to sweep it under the rug, but this was sensational.
Yeah, I thought the upcoming 1922 got more press than this, and I think this film really stood to deserve it. I think there could have even been some award buzz around this film. Like, I think Bruce Greenwood and, what's her name?
The one from Watchmen.
Yeah, the main lady. Really embarrassing, I don't know her name, but I think they both gave absolutely sensational performances, both when they were themselves and when they were the figments of her mind. I think they were each able to flick between different emotions and personalities brilliantly, that it really brought something unique to it, especially from Bruce Greenwood, because there were moments where I felt sympathetic for him, there were moments where I felt really quite chilled by him, and I was just in other moments just like, you utter arsehole.
While I only see him as the dude from Racing Stripes, when... Actually, I was about to say something, but that's a spoiler, so I'm not going to say that. But the main plot of the film is a married couple. They've been together for ages, and they're trying to... Things have gotten a little bit stale, so they try and reinvigorate and shake things up a bit by going on a weekend break.
And try and, let's put this gently, reinvigorate the passion between them. They try a little bit of hoodinkery involving some handcuffs, and it doesn't quite work for them.
A little bit of jiggery pokery.
Yep, a little bit of wham bam thank you ma'am, but it doesn't go well for them, and unfortunately Gerald, the titular character by Bruce Greenwood, well, it's not really a spoiler, that's in the trailer, that's the selling point of the film.
It's better if they go in not knowing.
He dies. Come on, it's in the trailer, everyone knew. It's the premise of the movie. She's tied to a bed and she doesn't know how she's going to escape. The film then becomes the story of how she will attempt to escape from the situation she finds herself in. Jake has just sat here in painful silence because he believes I've spoiled the movie. It's really not a spoiler. You knew what was coming. Everyone had seen this trailer, as undersold as it was. She then attempts to escape from her situation whilst also having to combat some figments of her mind and also some dark demons from her past, which I will not go into.
Oh, those demons were very dark.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the darker Stephen King adaptations. It's not a straight-up horror, but some of the issues that are discussed here, to me, are very similar to his other work featuring Kathy Bates, Dolores Claiborne. There are some, themes and, stories regarding families that are really, really interesting that I think were greatly explored in this movie.
I feel that Stephen King, he either needs a cuddle or he needs some counselling, because the dark things that mind thinks of, someone give him a cuddle.
Yeah, you say that, he's given us some of the most happy and hopeful films in the world. He gave us Shawshank Redemption, he gave us Stand By Me, he gave us The Green Mile. They're actually really nice films about
heartwarming family tales.
Yeah, they're not, you feel good at the end of them. You don't really feel as great as you do during Shawshank Redemption as you do watching Gerald's Game. There are some really quite sickening and horrible scenes in this film, but it really is a great great movie. I think it's a really good adaptation, given that it was from an actually quite short novel. They added in one or two scenes and conversations, and they added some more bits in on the ending, and they really improved the source material. I think the performances were great, and the way it was shot was even more beautiful. There's a certain scene involving an eclipse in this film, and it looked beautiful.
It looked fantastic, and especially for what's essentially a made-for-TV movie, because it's not, apart from certain film festivals and stuff, it's not, for the most part, going to be shown on the big screen.
No, definitely not.
The detail that they still put into it, like, they act like it is going to be a big blockbuster, with like the prosthetics that they use, and all the special effects, and the cinematography. This film just looks amazing. You would never have guessed that it's a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, honestly, this was a really technically well-made and extremely engaging movie. While I've made mention of the fact that there are some very gory scenes and that there are some very difficult to deal with scenes, the real tension from this film came from the moments of surprise. There were scenes in this film that involve a dog, there were scenes that involve a husband, there were scenes that involve an otherworldly character, and when they just sort of came into shot with you not expecting it, or without her expecting it, and how she dealt with some of these scenes, or even seeing her try to escape for that matter, that was what really made the movie. They put real thought into what her thought processes were and how you would react to a situation like this, and what, of course, can make it worse and worse for her. And it was just so beautifully put to the screen. I was really engaged and interested by all of it.
The performances, that poor woman, to have to go through that. She was so good in this film, and beforehand I've seen her in stuff like Watchmen, and she has been really good, but this, she really is the standout. Her and her husband are just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a real shame that the Academy does not consider more films like this, as I think there would be genuine press around both of these actors. I think they would at least be campaigning to get them nominated. Whether they won is another story, but they were absolutely sensational in this movie, and I think it's great that she was willing to take such a risk like this. Not to sound rude, but she is an older woman, and she is doing a bit of a provocative story. She's wearing provocative nightwear throughout the whole film. It's a bit of a taboo subject matter, like all the kinky stuff that they do in the film, but the fact that in the entire film, the camera's always on her, it's always about her character, always about her story. I think it's really, really interesting that she was willing to go for something like this and yet commit to it so well and give such a great performance.
She really impressed me. So before we go into spoilers, would you recommend the film?
Yeah, this is a definite recommendation of mine. This is quite possibly, in years to come, going to be in my top 10 Stephen King adaptations. I think it beats some of the others by a long shot, and I think it's a really engaging character study with some really, really great performances, probably for the ages. We're going to be talking about this film in years to come, I can clearly tell.
Better than it?
Honestly, yes. This is my favourite Stephen King film this year. It had problems, this one did not.
Wait, you preferred it to The Dark Tower? Oh my goodness, this must be good. No, but I did really enjoy this film, and it's on Netflix. Just check it out. It's not like you have to go out your way to see it. Just, you can watch it instantly. It is very much worth your time.
Please support it. Support this along with all the other Netflix movies. They don't get all the biggest press in the world, but this is definitely one of the ones that deserves it.
Netflix is just churning out amazing hit after amazing hit. It's probably why they're 1 billion in debt, but it's worth it for us.
Yeah, when you've given us films like Okja, To the Bone, and of course this and Gerald's Game, and To Come, 1922, another Stephen King movie, which we'll be sure to review, you know that they're going really bright places, because these are 3 really great films with all great performances that I would die to see again, or even on the same scale on Netflix in the future. I think it's got a really bright future ahead of itself if it goes for these new kind of originally made movies.
Right, so we're now going to go talk spoilers. You can look at the timestamp on the thing to go to for when we've stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
But, right, so... Oh my goodness, that scene where she takes her hand.
Oh god, yeah, that was probably There's a lot of cringy moments in this movie, but that makes you cringe in disgust. It is so graphic and vivid. You feel for her so much in this film, especially in the scene where she just realises this is the only way I'm going to get out, and she's both got her subconscious trying to convince her to do it and her husband to not do it, and she just thinks, I'm doing it, I'm going for it, I'm coming out of this one way or the other. And you can feel the pain, like you're holding your hand every single second in which she does this.
I'm normally pretty much all right with gore. Like, I've seen The Walking Dead, I'm fine, I'm not that squeamish.
Yeah.
But in this, I just grabbed my phone and messaged Zach and was like, what is happening? What is happening? Her hand, her poor hand.
Yeah.
Because you can see all the bones and all the tendons underneath it, and the prosthetics that they used, phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then, like, when it cuts to her husband, who's there lying on the floor, and then the dog's eating his face and his arm. Oh, chilling stuff.
Or even like with the serial killer guy at the end of the movie, like when they did the prosthetics for his head, it looked really, really good. Like, I think that should be something that, like I said, if this film did get Academy attention, it should be given props for prosthetics and for shots. It was really, really well done.
At first, when he first came in, I was like, oh yeah, that's an hallucination. But then she saw the footprint in the blood, and then I was, I just freaked out. I was like, oh my goodness, it's real.
I do think, though, in this movie, Stephen King was really, really borrowing from Dolores Claiborne. There's going to be slight spoilers for Dolores Claiborne here, and I'm going to try not to go into too much depth, but I'm going to have to a little bit. I don't know which of these movies came first, but there is a subplot in this film regarding paedophilia, and it is where the father in Gerald's game of the main character, Jess, engages in some inappropriate actions with his daughter. And this is also an extremely similar subplot to his other film, Dolores Claiborne. And I felt this was really, really on-the-nose connections. The fact that both of these movies have an eclipse scene when there is discussion or action of this paedophilic subplot going on. I felt it was really strange to see this happen. I don't know if Gerald's game came first and then Stephen King thought, I'll take that little bit and make it into a full book. I don't know, but I couldn't help but draw the parallels between the two books, and that was starting to annoy me, the two films as well, and that was really starting to annoy me as I watched this film. While it was done amazingly, these flashback scenes, to see the father and daughter relationship, I couldn't help but sit there and just think, really? Did they go on for that long about this?
I've seen this before.
Yeah, it was a little bit of deja vu. Like, I kind of could tell what was going on the second they left her behind.
Stephen King must have a vendetta against eclipses. He must have loved the first Despicable Me, where they just make the moon disappear.
Oh, God. But I think the most engaging part of this movie is the scenes regarding Gerald.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, when he starts to get more... Because he does like this really great thing where he'll change with her. Like, there's these moments where he's like really sympathetic and really caring to her, and then there's just these other moments where he's like, you're just a stupid idiot, you've spent hours here, you're wasting your life. And it was really interesting to see a performance like this from Bruce Greenwood.
And also, one of the final shots while she's looking at the dude in court, and then it then cuts to the man with all the deformities, and then it then cuts to her dad, and it then cuts to her husband. I didn't think that they'd actually show that, and I thought that they'd just imply it, but I'm so glad they did, because it worked so well, and it just really hit home the fact that she has been in these cuffs all her life.
Yeah, and then the fact that she's still dealing with the effects of it. Like, they do really well in the movie. Like, you see where she's wearing the glove and she says it still hurts when I write. And then the fact that every night she's screaming from the nightmares. It was really interesting to see how they keep this going throughout the whole film.
Also, when she was in the car, and then she saw that thing in the back seat, that was very much like Legion, like the X-Men series, definitely. with the fat dude. I don't really know how else to explain him without spoiling it. But I think they very much sort of saw that and thought, oh, that's cool. Yeah. Put that in, like, with the glowing eyes. Yeah, but the director is same director as Oculus and Ouija Origin of Evil.
Really? Wow, that's really quite impressive, because Oculus was a really great underrated horror film.
He knows what makes things scary, and it's not just jump scares, and while there are jump scares, it's not just that, it's the pacing and
the tension.
It is genuine horror rather than just oh look, it's a ghost.
But most importantly, it's the characters for me. I think he
Yeah,
like.
that's
I
what
don't.
Stephen
I don't.
King does
Yeah,
best.
I don't care in a horror film if I don't care about the characters. In this film, I gave such a damn. I felt really bad for her the whole film. I even managed to feel bad for Bruce Greenwood's character, and that was where this film was successful. Especially also in the happy ending. This was a happy ending from a Stephen King movie. Like at the end, she does something really great of her life. She's helping other people. She kind of gets back her justice when she walks into the court and just says what she has to that man. It was really nice to see it. It was really heartwarming after the fact that you've just been sat there for nearly 2 hours and had to watch this woman go through this torture to actually get something back and have something good happen to her.
I loved the reaction from the man in the court where he was then scared of her and he's like,
Yeah.
you're not real, you're not real.
Yeah.
And it just sort of juxtaposed it and put it on his head. But a question, proposing a question, where do you think her wedding ring went?
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that kind of subplot about the whole guy who's like watching her and he's a murderer or whatever he was. It never really kind of seemed that important to me.
Was that supposed to be the man in court?
Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was. I
because
was. Yeah,
to me it looked like
I
there were
really
two
wasn't that sure.
characters,
I
yeah.
was more focused on how she was going to escape, and then the conversation she was having with Gerald and the flashbacks to her dad in relation. I didn't really focus on that as much, but they did it well. I'll give them that. It wasn't the biggest part of the movie for me.
I was also very much expecting, like when she crashed her car, and then the people come out with the torches to help her. I was very much expecting like a bleak Black Mirror ending where they're then murderers themselves, and then they then
Yeah.
like she feels like she's escaped, but
Yeah.
no.
That would have been a great twist to see that go. But all in all, this is a film that really you should give it your attention. You should pay as much like time as you can to see this film. It was really great. It is definitely worth it, and it's, as Jake said, very easy to get a hold of.
Very much worth your time. Right, so Zach, we're now going to move on. So prepare your mind, soul and body to revisit Mother.
This film was the most harrowing experience I've ever had at a film in absolute years. I left the theatre on my knees. My mind was just broken and my soul was torn to shreds. I absolutely loved and hated this movie. And for me, it's my personal favourite film of the year.
I hate the fact that I loved this film. And then I've now seen it twice, and the second time I was just as mesmerised, disgusted, violated as the first time, and I loved it.
Yeah, this is a film in the sense that you are disgusted by what you see, but you love the fact that you've experienced it and that it has made you someone who has seen what this film has got to show and understand how despicable we are as a race, and it's just really harrowing.
Like, I'd heard about the violence before we went in, so I was expecting a lot of gore and stuff like that. But I wasn't expecting that.
Darren Aronosky has made some dark films. Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream are real eye-openers. They're not kid-friendly films, but I think this is his magnum opus in his what the fuck moments. This was a film that was, to me, terrifying, emotional, and just... It was really emotional. I felt really upset. And it was rare in the fact that, because we were the only ones in the whole theatre seeing this, it was a film that actually made me scream at the screen.
I love the fact that we were the only ones in the screening, because it allowed us both to vent rather than having to hold it in inside. Because like in the second time when I was with my dad and there were other people in the screening, I sort of had to hold it in even though I knew what was coming. So I was like internalized oppression, whereas when it was just us two, we were both like, you can't do that, what are you
this
doing,
is not okay.
put it back, get off the sink,
Yeah.
sort your life out.
Yeah, this was just a film where I was getting increasingly more and more angry, because in this scenario I think I relate exactly in the way Jennifer Lawrence would, but I would have said something a lot sooner. It's horrible, the things that she goes through in this movie, and it's a film that's unique in the sense that you do want to see it by yourself because you are going to scream at the show. It's just...
Right, so as with Gerald's Game and all our reviews, we're going to talk non-spoilers, but then we'll warn you when it goes to spoilers.
Yeah.
So we can't really talk about the story without spoiling it because it is so straight away it gets into some strange stuff. So the acting in this was phenomenal. If Jennifer Lawrence doesn't even get nominated, then there is something wrong with the Academy.
Yeah, regardless of what you think about this film, to everyone out there who didn't like it, I can see why you didn't like it, but you can't deny she was put through the ringer in this movie. I don't think I've ever seen an actor go to that extent and be pushed that far. Bravo to her, and I think she is in desperate deserving of any kind of award for this movie. It was brilliant where she was taken to. It was horrible to watch, but it was a real feat of just difference. We'd never seen anything like this on a film before.
And also she just snapped in and out of she snapped in and out of performing because Darren Aronosky said while they'd be preparing themselves to set up a shot, she'd be reading her book, and then they'd be like, "Oh, Jennifer, it's time to come on now." And then she'd be like, "Oh, okay." And then she'd get into it straight away. So it's not even like she was Daniel Day-Lewising and she was drinking everyone's milkshakes. She was coming out of character and she was just being herself and being friendly on set, but then she just went into this dark place as soon as they called action.
Yeah. I just want to make a quick point before I address that. If you haven't seen this movie, please go away. We don't want you hearing a word of this. You need to go in, you need to experience it, you need to be blind as you can be given the trailers. Go in there and just witness this. Don't and then come back and listen to this because you're going to want to. You're going to want to be able to have your own theories and thoughts on this. But of course, to get back to what Jake said, it is a real testament to Jennifer Lawrence's acting capabilities. I think she's given us some really great performances like Silver Lining the Playbook, American Hustle. But this was a real testament to what she can do. The places that she went to in this movie, I have never seen an actor bring to screen before. This film is a story about a Pulitzer Prize winning poet. He's a man who is...
This is spoilers.
No, this isn't spoilers. I won't be going into the detailed plots of it. I'm just giving you a general premise. This is just a poet who is fallen down some writer's block, and his wife has tried to build a bit of an idyllic home for them so they can, how should I put it, restore his creativity. Things seem to be going well for them until a visitor comes to the house. This is where the problem...
Knock, who's there?
Yeah, it's the Babadook. This is where the problems then ensue, and she has to experience and deal with what happens when people come into her home uninvited. That's really all we can say about this movie's plot, because this is something that you need to go and experience yourself. And we don't want to ruin it for you. It's a unique cinema experience in that sense.
Nothing I'm going to say. Michelle Pfeiffer, I love you. Your performance is brilliant. You're amazing. But in this film, just get some manners, please.
Oh dear God, this was a film where I was screaming at the characters. You do not do that. That is not acceptable. And if I was in that movie, I'd have been screaming, "Get the fuck out of my house." That's just horrible. What Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer are able to bring to this role is brilliant. Michelle Pfeiffer, I think, is really back on form for this movie. I haven't seen her do anything great in years, and this is
Stardust.
I will punch your eyes. Ed Harris also, especially, to see him come in and do a great role like this. Like, he's a character you feel real sympathy for at points in the movie. Like, I feel really bad for him. Like
with his two sons and...
Yeah, even Donald Gleeson appears in this movie. I had absolutely no idea he was there, even though he was in the trailer. And it was...
He looks completely different, and I don't know what's different about him, but he looks like an impression or imitation of himself rather than his actual self.
He brought something really different to the role. Like, it was something that I really wasn't expecting from him. Pound for pound, I know what to expect from Donald Gleeson, because, well, he's basically Jake. I've seen him every day of my life. But in this film, he really surprised me with the places he went to, and he brought himself off as a really quite chilling and quite cold character. And I was actually really kind of scared when he came back into the house.
There's one surprise actor that we're not going to mention until we get to spoilers, because I was very pleasantly surprised that this person was in there.
The second she appeared, I cheered and went, wow! And then the second she did certain things in this movie, I thought, you poor soul, run while you still can. I felt so bad for her. But really, this was a great movie. Like, I understand why people don't like it. Like, people can make the complaint that this is like,
Shocking for the sake of it.
yeah, shocking for the sake of it, and it's a bit too pretentious, it's too artsy, but really this is really not that. This is a film that critics should love. This is a film that, in my opinion, everyone on Earth, when they come to a certain age, should experience. It is that good. It's that important to understand the message of. And although there have been some parallels that were drawn to it in before it released between it and Rosemary's Baby, like people think that's what it's going to be, like a horror film. It's really not. It's horrifying. There are some terrifying scenes in this, and it's the most uncomfortable I've ever felt in a film, almost on edge. But it's not a horror film. It's a really deep, metaphorical message movie that gives you something to really think about.
It's the best psychological thriller I think I've ever seen, because it's not just oh, this is interesting, that's creepy. It stays with you for a long time after watching it. And I saw a tweet after that said, hands up if you feel personally victimized and violated by Darren Aronosky's mother. And it was just a gif of a whole like sea of people just putting their hands up.
Yeah.
Because it does personally relate to you. You do very much feel like you're very intimate with Jennifer Lawrence, because she is like 90% of the film.
Yeah, nearly every shot is on her, and seeing her reactions captured as well as they are was a real testament to Aronofsky as a filmmaker.
Also, I would say to try and watch this film in the cinema, where
Yes, definitely.
where
Give this film your support, it deserves it.
because I think it'd be better if you can't pause it and walk away, because you just need to watch it in full without being able to take a breather, because it is just one thing after another. It never lets you come up to take a breath. And that's good, because it then means that you have to digest it all at the end rather than digesting it chunk for chunk.
Yeah.
Because that means that the ending is just as impactful.
That's my favourite thing about this film, is the fact that it never gave you a single moment to catch your breath. It was just moments of intense waiting. I was getting quite frustrated in certain points because I was just waiting for something to happen. And when something does happen in this movie, it happens and it never stops. But the waiting in this movie is what really got to me. You could not take your eyes off it because you were that engaged in what the characters were doing with each other. And it's a real testament to Aronofsky that he's been able to do this. Like, I don't think he knows what this film was, but I think he knew from the very start that his intention or his primary goal was to see the audience encapsulated, and this is the perfect film for that, in my opinion. You cannot take your eyes off it.
And he said even though it is getting booed at some screenings and people are walking out, he said even though he isn't so keen on the boos and he would prefer cheers and more critical acclaim, he said that he is looking for a reaction from people, and it has opened a dialogue. And that's one of the things that I really like about the film, because it has got people talking.
Yeah, given the message of this film as well, which we will later reveal in full, it's great to see that people are discussing it. And I think this is a film that really makes you look at yourself, look at your life, and look at your actions against the world and to other people as a whole, and really just think, God, how did this happen? How have we become like this? And I think the fact that more people are talking about this, even if it is in a negative way, they're at least understanding that there was essentially a point to it, and that there was an element of reflection to be found within it.
So we've sort of said already, but so you definitely recommend it.
Yeah, this is for me my favourite film of the year. Logan was sensational, Baby Driver was a masterpiece for the ages, but this is a film that I feel we will be talking about in 100 years. I actually put it down there right now. This is a film that we will be discussing. This will be a film that has that cult following because of its hated or because of its loved. This is a film that makes you feel something. I've watched a crap ton of movies in my life, and I never left a film feeling as strongly about it as I did. I physically couldn't explain what I'd seen to other people. It shocked and moved me that much.
I very much feel like this is basically a film about Marmite. You either love it or you hate it, because it is so divisive. And it's almost like in drama we've been learning about theatre of cruelty. It's like they've taken that and the personal victimisation that you feel from being singled out even if you're in a crowd of millions of people and they put on a screening of this film, each and every one of you will feel personally victimized.
Yeah, you will feel something in this movie. You will not sit there looking at your watch. You'll either look away in horror or you'll look forward and pure fascination as to what it is you're seeing. This is a film that you need to get out there and support. And for me, this is a film that is in desperate need of award. This film deserves to be recognised for what it does, especially Aronofsky and how he brings something so... I admit it's made no money, but he has brought something that I think is the most original film that we've seen in a summer in years.
And he only wrote it in like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, it's just a real testament to him. And I think personally, Black Swan is one of the best dramatic films I've ever seen, and especially also Requiem for a Dream. But this is his magnum opus. I think everything that he's ever learned as a filmmaker is poured into this movie. And I think he's honestly gotten the best performances out of his actors in this movie. What they do and what they bring to the screen is sensational.
I think you're forgetting Noah.
Notice how I'm being silent.
That was a very, very great film. That was just outstanding.
Shut up. Russell Crowe was pretty in it. I think now, though, we're going to have to go into spoilers. And, of course, we will... say in the title card when to expect spoilers, but this is now where we're going to start discussing what the movie meant, what we think it meant, and overall what was beautiful about certain scenes.
So, like with Gerald's game, we said go watch it, but with this one, go watch it and throw your money at it.
Yeah, throw every penny you have at it. This movie deserves it, and good God, Aronofsky needs to be making more movies like this, and he can't if we don't give him the money.
I found that while watching it, I didn't fully know what to think of it. I didn't know whether to laugh, whether to cry, whether to
run away and hide. It's just a film where you just cannot take your eyes off it. There were moments where I felt so happy. There were moments where I felt utterly just devastated. And there were moments where I just wanted to... I almost personified myself as Jennifer Lawrence, and I just wanted to scream. That was what this movie did so effectively, in the fact that you almost felt yourself becoming Jennifer Lawrence, and the fact that you just wanted to be her voice, and the fact that she's silent for so much of this film about her anger until one glorious scene. You just want to scream for her. You want to be there to help her, because you just feel so bad for her in this film.
And you just want to take her off to a quiet room, give her a cuddle, and say, it's going to be alright, we'll get them out of your house.
Yeah, honestly, what she went through in this movie, I don't think any actress should have gone through. It was sensational what she brought to the screen, but I would not put even my worst enemy through what this character went through, let alone the actress.
It's like White Bear, Black Mirror.
Yeah, good God, if this was White Bear... yeah, I think even people who ran that would question the ethics of it. There are certain scenes in this movie, like... Of course, there is a scene where you do see her breasts... and it's not for any, like, sexual reason.
I feel like that would have been in her contract. Like, I'm happy to do it, except I don't want it to be sexualised, because you sort of feel guilty for seeing it.
Yeah, it's for very thematic reasons in this movie, and it's really quite sensational, the scene in which they do it in and how the people act upon her.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's really, really horrible, and the second you think, like that, but then a second... that has happened, you are just disgusted by what follows, and I think Jennifer Lawrence went above and beyond in this movie in some of the scenes, like the scene towards the end of the movie where she is the child with her, and then the fear and terror and of course the grief that she shows at the loss of her child. It's something that I've seen unparalleled in a movie before. Like, it really was unique in that sense.
I'd have said the film could have possibly been a very, very dark 15 if it wasn't for that one shot.
Yeah, there is a shot in this film that I can understand why certain people were very angry to have seen, and it is unfortunately where a baby, we won't say how, is unfortunately killed, and it is disturbing.
If you have just had a child, do not watch this film.
Yeah, it will break you in that sense. It's all for thematic reasons, it's all to serve a purpose and to ultimately explore a message. And that's why I felt this film was so great. It didn't just throw lots of people are claiming it just throws violence at the screen for no reason, it shocks you because it can. But that's completely wrong. People should be looking at this movie on a deeper sense and seeing that this is done for a reason. This is to parallel things that to many people actually happened, and it's all for an important reason. I think really at that point then, the fact that we've discussed that, it should be where we kind of discuss what this film means.
Yeah, very much so, very much.
I think, Jake, you've got... I'll chip in, but I think the fact that you've seen this twice, I think you've kind of got a bit of the grip on what it all means. Like, Darren Aronosky, actually, in some theatres, he released a statement that people were to read before the film started, in the fact that instead, even he didn't know what this was. There's about 50 million different interpretations you can get with this film. It's, again, unique in the sense that you can go into this film with 5 different interpretations into your head, watch it 5 times and see each different interpretation play out masterfully. So, Jake, please.
When we first saw it, I feel that we both came out of it with very similar interpretations because we were sort of talking throughout, because we were the only ones in the screening. So I felt... I'm not sure if you felt the same in the first time we watched it, but I felt that it was all a metaphor for being famous and like false idols, and how Javier Bardem, who is brilliant in this film, he is so good. How...
Yeah, if Jennifer Lawrence doesn't get nominated for this movie, he certainly should be.
Yeah, for sure. But I saw it as he was a failing writer, and he'd had a few hits in the past, but then he brings out this new one that he gets inspiration for, and then he then starts to become famous again, and then people really relate to it, and people love it, and they're like, oh, it personally affected me. And then they start coming to the house, and then they start doing this, that, and the other. And I feel that it was very much so a metaphor for his love for her, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and
very
then
much so.
And then she just wants him, whereas he, not in a malicious way, but he does want their affection. He does want to be liked, because who doesn't want to be liked? That is something that everyone can relate to. And so there was that amazing bit after they had the child. I think it was after they had the child. It was like, get them out of our house, and he's like, I don't want them to leave.
I don't want them to leave. That was the most powerful line of this entire movie for me.
No, I wouldn't say that was the most powerful. The most powerful
was the most powerful line for me. That was absolutely just... Seriously? After what she's just been through, and you're willing to say that. That got me inside.
I would say the most powerful line is after the fire, and then he's holding her, and she says, was my love ever enough? And he just says, no.
That is, I admit, that is a glorious scene. It's maybe only topped by the earlier scene when he has the jewel broken, and then Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer are like saying, oh, we're sorry, and he just like snaps or just quiet out, and it's just, you can really see why Javier Bardem is quite a scary man in real life. I would not want to meet him in a dark alleyway, because that actually shook me a little bit. I was just, I can't.
I'd like to see him in a dark alleyway, only if he was my friend, so he could protect me.
Yeah, good God. I came out of this movie with kind of 2 interpretations as to what it meant. I kind of felt throughout the first half of this movie it was a parable about manners. Like how long... Shut up. Like how long you're willing to let your manners kind of go before you say something. How long you're willing to put up with other people and their behaviour before you do something about it. Which is, for what it is, a lot of this film. Like, she goes through such crap she's put through by Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer. And that's what I felt it was. But then when it took this turn later in the film, when everyone starts coming to the house, I thought it was a bit of a story about how things that we love are never really unique in one sense. If you look at, for instance, your favourite film of all time, like, for instance, mine's Jurassic Park, but there are 50 million other people on the planet who also love it. It is unique to me in one sense, but it is shared in love by every other person, and how it's a metaphor of you can never really love one person or one thing entirely, because everyone else can do the same, and because of which you will never love it in itself. It will always be the world's, and how you can't just limit it to yourself. And that actually was the interpretation I preferred, because that kind of got to me, and it kind of like really made me think, like, what is love at the end of the day, like what
Baby, don't hurt
me,
don't hurt me no more.
But yeah, and it was that was my preferred interpretation of it, even if it wasn't the correct one, I'll admit.
That too also really impacted me, because I've realised it a lot at the moment, especially when I'll be talking about a film with my dad, and then we'll say a celebrity like, oh, do you like Tom Hardy? And we're like, oh yeah, we really like him, but we don't know him, we don't know what he's like, we just like his work, but yet we still feel like we have a connection to him, and he has no clue that we even exist.
And that's really what this film was, as it went to progress. It was really interesting to see how at points Javier Bardem was confessing undying love for Jennifer Lawrence, and then in other scenes he was just, oh, hi darling, you're here? Okay, go make some tea. It was horrifying to see that, and just really heartbreaking for her when she loves him unconditionally, for him just to treat her like that.
It could almost be a metaphor for dogs, because dogs love their owners unconditionally, and then...
Yeah. Again, it's another interpretation to go into this movie looking at.
Jennifer Lawrence is Mr. Peanut Butter.
Is this a crossover episode?
Hey, is this a crossover episode?
I think now that we're going to discuss what this movie
actually
means. At the heart of it, it's a story regarding how Javier Bardem is God and Jennifer Lawrence is Mother Earth. They create an idyllic paradise together, and it's ruined by man. Ed Harris is essentially a metaphor for Adam.
Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer
he has the scar for the rib.
Yeah, you see how they're close friends, whereas Michelle Pfeiffer's character, Eve, is pushed aside. She leads him into temptation when they break the jewel. That's what angers God, and they're cast out. And then there are certain scenes in this film where the people return. They just start to destroy Mother Earth. They build all over her house. They attack her, but God can't push them out because he is so in love with them. And I think it was kind of a metaphor for the fact that God prefers the love of the people, because the reality, the alternative even, is there's only one Mother Earth to love him, while there are 7 billion people to love him. And I think that's what he personally prefers. And in the final scene, of course, when Jennifer Lawrence has died, he rebuilds the house. And it's essentially a belief regarding some people that when God has just finished the world, he'll just build it all up again. There is also so many other religious metaphors in this film, like when you see the two sons fighting with one another.
Abel.
It's Cain and Abel, like that story. When you see, spoiler alert, Kristen Wiig is in this movie, and when she comes in, it was a real surprise to see her. She is the herald of God. She scribes everything that he does, and she tells tales of his talent.
Hey, there is my little inspiration.
Yeah, literally. And then there's also the scene with the baby. It's the metaphor for Jesus, how it's terrifying. Everyone loves him, and then how they, through their own actions and self-greed, they kill the child, which is just disgraceful. And also how throughout this film you can see in the final moments when the house is just overrun, you can see moments of history throughout the world. You can see how people certainly started to grow to learn art, how they learned to build industry, how there was war, how there was police violence, how there's even modern things like how prisoners of war are treated. It was a real metaphor, this film, for what the span of creation has led us to, and how badly we have treated Mother Earth, and especially how despicable it is that God has just allowed it to continue.
And also, it starts off slow with just Adam and Eve, and then it builds up, and then suddenly there are just hundreds and hundreds of people, and then it's the war, and that's to show how, scientists have said for ages now, if the whole history of the world was on a 24-hour clock, then humans would only have been in the past minute or so.
Yeah, that's something that I really liked in this movie, and the fact that they sort of paced out the Adam and Eve segment, because it's only two people, it's two people's story, and the fact that the final scene in this movie when the house is overrun is so quick, is so jarring, is so just jumpy, is because you haven't got time to tell the story of every single person on the planet. And that was something that just really twinged to me by the end of the film. I was thinking, wow.
It's something that made me think of the airport scene from the first Rick and Morty episode, where they break that jar, and then that little baby breaks out of it, and then it's running, then it slowly goes into an old man, then it collapses and dies. And it's just how fast everything is.
Yeah, I think it's just wholly unique in a way that it displays religion. I don't think I've ever seen these religious themes discussed in a way before in a movie, and I think that's what makes it so unique. I think this is a film that religious people should watch, and I think ordinary people should watch, and I think more importantly scientists should watch, just to see how they relate to it, how their faith shapes around the film, and of course how they personally are moved by it, because it's just unique in the sense that it will move you.
And also my interpretation, while I knew while watching it there were holes in it, like things didn't quite make sense, even though things don't make sense in everyone's interpretation, it's still unique in the way that it's like a painting. Everyone can see it differently while they're seeing the same.
Yeah. Honestly, I think there's not really much more that we can say about this movie. It's really something that you just need to get out and see. I've said it 100 times in this podcast. It's unique.
Yeah.
And you will never see a film like it. And I don't think you ever will again. It will leave you having felt something. And that's all that really can be said about it.
And I love the looping narrative. Like, I love things with that, where you show the ending at the beginning, and it's like
you know what's coming, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the Doctor Who episode where Peter Capaldi's there, and he's heaven sent.
Yes.
And he's there, and then it just shows like the hand and the bird at the beginning, and it then adds new meaning.
Yeah.
By the end of it.
Really, do yourself a favour, get out there and see this movie. It's a film filled with stupidly good little nuances and metaphors, even down to the fact that not a single person in this film has a first name. They're all referred to as mother, him, her.
And we didn't even notice that till the credits came up.
Yeah, till the
and we're
credits
like,
came
hang on,
up.
Did they not have a name?
We honestly racked our brains throughout this entire film to think, did he actually have a name? And no, they really did not.
It's like in Midnight, it's like, did anyone know her name?
Yeah, exactly. So please, get out there and see this movie.
But this film, it's just fun for all the family.
Right, so now we go to our weekly segment known as the Quickfire Question. Since Jake was able to come up with a brilliant question last week, it is now it is now fallen to me to come up with a new one. And I thought to myself, in honour of Gerald's game, this week we're going to be asking, what is the best Stephen King adaptation? I myself am going to be picking Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Now, keep in mind, this isn't a debate on what adapts the book best. This is a commentary and a debate on what is the best movie in terms of quality. So I will be going for Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. This is, for me, the epitome of horror. This is one of the most beautifully shot films ever. It is given some of the greatest character performances you could ever hope to see. Jack Nicholson is sensational in this film. How he didn't win an Oscar, I do not know. Kubrick deserved an Oscar for Best Director. He was so beautiful in the shots of this film. There was literally a documentary and controversy made on it, on the fact that people thought he'd faked the moon landing because of this movie being so good. Stephen King may have famously hated it, but it was a movie for the ages. It redefined what you could do with horror. There were certain scenes in it where we still don't understand what was going on today. When the dog bear man thing is ingratiating the waiter, when you see the photo at the end, people don't know. Stanley Kubrick never told them, and that's why this film is so good. Nicholson is a classic, and it's a film with ambiguity that you just can't help but look back on and smile.
As much as I love that film, it's going to really pain me to have to put it down, because one of the reasons why King doesn't like the adaptation of The Shining is because it's Jack Nicholson starts off and he's a bit sleazy, he's a bit slimy, whereas in the novel he's very much a very nice guy to begin with. So already off in the film you're sort of there's something off about that character, which is why I'm going to herald. I'm a very indecisive person, so I'm surprised I thought this one and came to this conclusion so quickly. I'm going to say The Shawshank Redemption.
Damn. I was thinking you would go for Misery. That would have been my second choice.
No, because I adore The Shawshank Redemption. There is a reason why it's the highest rated film on IMDb, and it has been for years. Because
just setting of the prison itself, and then you get taken on this horrible, horrible journey with this character where you just feel so down. And even though it has the happy ending, it's only happy because you've had these low points with this character and you feel so bad for him because you know that it's not his fault. And then the whole way through it, you're like, oh, he's doing something, but I don't know what. And then that famous shot of just him in the water, he's come out the pipe. And while there are so many iconic shots in The Shining, that's iconic to horror. I would say that Shawshank Redemption, that shot, is iconic to the whole of cinema.
Well, I can't fault you on that comment, and I can't fault you on picking Shawshank Redemption. It is truly a beautiful film, one of my favourite films ever made. But we've seen it before in senses. There are too many weird balances in this film. It goes with the depression, then it goes with the hope. I don't think it can find a stable balance between the two. Kubrick, I think, pushed his actors further than Darabont did with this. Shelley Duvall literally had her hair falling out. Not to mention the fact that...
Oh, that's because they did that take about 100 times.
Yeah, what you expect? She must have been terrified with Nicholson coming with an axe through the door. I think, personally, also, they're playing caricatures in Shawshank Redemption. Like, Morgan Freeman's a character that I think you can see in other movies. Like, I can't remember his character's name, that pains me. Similarly, it's very long, Shawshank. There are moments where it goes on for the sake of it. I don't think it needs to be as long as it personally is. The Shining is as much as you need to see, and you don't see a lot of it. It's perfect in that sense.
I think this is my conclusion I'm going to draw from this. I would say The Shining is the best Stephen King horror film, whereas Shawshank, in my opinion, is the best Stephen King film.
I think I'd have to agree with you there. And given that King is the master of horror...
Yeah, he's ubiquitous with horror.
Yeah, he is just... Horror is his bread and butter. I think in that sense you are correct. But when it comes to movie overall, I think that the movie people revisit more is The Shining. Personally, I don't watch Shawshank unless if it's a personal moment. I watch Shining every single Halloween, and it speaks to me more because there's a reason to revisit it. Shawshank you'll watch once, maybe twice because it's rerunning on cable. Shining, you want to rewatch because there's something new to be learned from it with every new reviewing.
Yeah, I can definitely see what you mean, and I hate the fact that I have to try and put Shining down, but because Stephen King's too good. He's on Google. If you Google how many books has Stephen King written, it says about 92.
God.
Because even Google doesn't know his greatness.
I think at this point we're going to have to resort to the tossing of a coin because this will be something that I'm sure will return to the show because we cannot just decide between these two masterpieces.
Shotgun heads.
Fine, it'll be tails. And it is heads.
Yes.
I'm not sad to have lost Shawshank. That's 2-1 for Jake. 2-0 actually, but...
Won both times.
Yeah, for now.
Very nice.
Yeah, that'll be Jake returning with the question next week. I'm not sad to have lost to Shawshank. It's a great movie. So now it's time for What's Appertaining. With me, what's appertaining is that I have just gotten a hold of Brian Lee O'Malley's brilliant book, Lost at Sea. I think it's a story about a girl who claims she's lost her soul because it's been stolen by a cat. I really don't understand what it's going to be about.
Schrodinger's cat.
Shut up. I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm a massive fan of Brian Lee O'Malley. I love Seconds. Scott Pilgrim is brilliant just in every way. And I think it's going to be really engaging to get my hands on and have a look at.
What's been appertaining for me is I've sort of been trying to take BoJack Horseman Series 4 slowly. Like, I haven't seen the finale yet because I don't want it to be over for another year. But Series 4, Episode 11, Time's Arrow, about dementia is one of the most poignant, emotional things that is possibly on TV at the moment. So, as well as watching BoJack Horseman, I finished American Vandal.
Hey.
Hashtag Who Drew the Dicks.
That's brilliant.
It's such a funny show.
I'm looking forward to getting hold of that.
So many twists and turns. It's just, everyone just watch it if you can.
That's brilliant.
As well as finishing American Vandal, I've also finished True Detective Series 1. And
Brilliant.
oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. What a
Contain it,
series.
Jake, contain it. I will also be next week discussing the finale of Rick and Morty and Rick and Morty Season 3 as a whole, as next week we'll have the finale posted on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
really
extremely
looking forward
excited
to
to see it, and I will be raising some of my qualms and problems with this season, while also some of the moments I've absolutely loved, like the fact that Jerry has been hilarious in it. Jerry is a good character.
Also, last night I watched. I was quite happy because I managed to whip out my Blu-ray of Blu-ray of Blade Runner.
Ooh, yes.
Again, in anticipation for tonight.
Yes, tonight we'll be taking ourselves to an advanced screening of Blade Runner 2049, a film assured to win Oscars.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, as two massive fans of the original, we can't wait to see what's brought to this universe and the way in which Denis Villeneuve makes a unique and beautiful story.
So this is my week and my turn to do the film recommendation, and I'm going to recommend the 2005 release that not many people have heard of, and that is really saddening because this film is so great. The 2005 release, Thank You for Smoking. To sum up the plot, it has Aaron Eckhart, who plays Harvey Dent and Two-Face from The Dark Knight. It's his job to convince people that smoking is great, and because he's basically a sales representative for a cigarette company. And the main conflict is when he comes up against William H. Macy from Fargo, who plays the antagonist. And the antagonist is a state senator promoting healthy eating. When is someone promoting healthy eating ever a villain? He also meets up with two mates every week that do the same job but for different industries like firearms. And they all boast on who's doing the most damage. They playfully call themselves the Merchants of Death. Aaron Eckhart's performance in this is just really interesting to watch because he doesn't come across as smarmy. He doesn't come across as someone you just want to tell to shut up, because you root for him. And that's a strange thing when he represents such a thing that's seen as toxic by so many people and seen as such a negative in society. It's just interesting how he comes across as charming and likable, but without being a dick about it, if that makes sense. And there's this beautiful shot towards the beginning of the film where he's up on this podium next to a microphone and he's talking into it, and his head goes from the right hand side of the screen to facing the left hand side of the screen, and when he's speaking it's to the sound of machine gun fire, and he says that his words are his weapon. And this film is shocking, but not in a way of it has lots of gore and it has lots of absurd imagery, because it doesn't. It's only shocking in the sense that, why am I rooting for this guy? Like, why do I like him? But I do, and I can't think of a reason not to like him. Basically, it's doing what Wolf of Wall Street is famous for, with making Jordan Belfort the protagonist and making him likeable, where you sort of half root for him in the end, even though you sort of shouldn't and you feel guilty for doing so. And it did it nearly a decade earlier. But this film is funny in places, this film's heartfelt in places, and the cast is actually pretty good. And the fact that no one's particularly heard of this, or anyone particularly talks about it, is such a shame, because it is just a genuinely good film. And the last scene is brilliant. I'm not going to spoil anything because I really want people to go out and see this. And I was first introduced to it by the Nostalgia Critic when he did a video on it, and I just loved it. It's just such a charming film that makes you think about freedom of speech, because in a sense that's what Aaron Eckhart's character's doing. He's not promoting smoking as such, he's just promoting people's choice to smoke and the freedom of speech, he's just promoting people's choice to smoke rather than actually promoting the cigarettes themselves. Also, just a little thing of note. If you do watch this, just look and see if anyone actually ever smokes a cigarette.
Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you potentially next week with reviews for the original Blade Runner, and of course, since we're seeing it tonight, Blade Runner 2049. So that's a thank you from me, and we better get ourselves to the theatre.
And until then, go away. I'd love to see Mother as the Happy Meal toy.
That's basically what Batman Returns was in 1982.